Hey, Spook Show fans, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
This is Bill Mosley, and you're listening to Spooky...
All-American Spookshow.
All-American...
The All-American Spookshow.
The All-American Spook Show. And even though I made a terrible mistake, please listen anyway. And just remember one thing. Run, rabbit! All the way to the theaters to see Three from Hell when it finally comes out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linnea, and you are listening to the All-American Spook Show. It is so scary, you might not be able to sleep all night long. It's a scream.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for a thrill. We have stories of the dead coming back
To life, to tales of the
to
night.
ride evil.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
The All-American
Hello, and once again, welcome to the All-American Spook Show Podcast. I'm Josh, and as always, I'm joined with Will
Yes, sir.
and the Professor Smoke.
Hiya.
And today is Celebrate Good Times. Come on. It's our 1-year anniversary. Also kind of our Halloween re-rating spectacular, whatever the hell we're going to call it. You get the point. Last October 18th of 2018 was when episode 1 came out. So it's a little bit past, but we're going ahead and celebrating kind of Halloween as our 1-year anniversary. Will, how do you think it's gone so far in the last year? You still with us? You enjoying it? Oh shit! I knew it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the longest year of my entire life.
That's the longest 5 years I've ever spent in 1 year.
No, man, I've enjoyed it. You got to watch a handful of movies that I've never heard of before, and most of them I've enjoyed.
I'd say most of these movies that we've watched you've never seen before, right? At least
A good portion.
out
Yeah.
of we've had 18 episodes leading up into this, and out of those, I'd say at least 15 or 16 of them you probably hadn't watched before.
Yeah.
And some of these I had never watched either. Now, Smoke, I think you'd pretty much watched all of them outside of maybe Terrified.
Yeah, Terrified, and what was some of the other newer ones that we did? Might have been another newer one in there that we did that I hadn't seen up until the podcast.
No, I can't think of any right off the top of my head outside of Terrified that for
Terrified,
you.
yeah, that might be the only one.
But yeah, it's it's been a good year. Smoke, how are you doing with it? You still enjoying it? You having a good time?
Oh
with
yeah,
it? Yeah.
definitely enjoying it. Yeah, it's also finding out some stuff about it that we do. I know all of us do our own research into it, so you always find something that you didn't know about it, even if it's a movie that you've seen many times before.
Mm-hmm.
Delving into it, I find some other new information or tidbit that was interesting. So even discovering new stuff about old movies that I'd already known for a while, so that's cool. And getting other people's perspective on ones that I've always loved as well is a fresh, coming into it that way.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the cooler aspects. My opinion of us doing this is that not only, like you said, getting other, you guys' opinions, just being able to discuss it and all that, but just finding stuff out about some of these movies, like, some of the box office numbers that we go over and some of the connections and all that. It's kind of cool just to, look back on that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I know you've been doing that for pretty much each one of these, and because I hadn't looked into that personally myself yet, so I like hearing all that box office info on what other movies were out at that time and how well the movie we're talking about did against other ones and whatnot. So.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that's an important part of it when you're going to start throwing out like, well, this is what the movie made. Well, let's see what it was up against. You know, like there's probably a reason why it was getting, tore up at the box office because it was going up against like the 28th week of E.T. or something. You know,
yeah.
There's usually always a story behind those kind of things. But the one thing I've seen too is that like a lot of horror movies don't play very long either. You know, it's rare that they play past 3-4 weeks in some cases, with a lot of these.
And 3 weeks is probably a long time for some of them.
Yeah.
To have played. I mean, nowadays it's it's totally different. Of course, other movies could play for like whatever the contracts are. They might play for 2 months. I mean, not necessarily horror movies or whatever, unless it's something like huge name or whatever. But a lot longer now than they did back then.
Yeah, I recall I think it was like House of a Thousand Corpses. I mean, I think it only played for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it was gone.
Yeah. And now we come to like 3 from Hell, which unfortunately only gets 3 release dates in the theater. So
yeah,
but it's all just the way things have gone as far as to streaming services. And sometimes movies play on streaming services at the same time as they're playing in theater.
So since the last episode, I was actually able to go see 3 from Hell at the the Fathom events. They played at like a local Regal movie theater here in Charlotte. So I was able to go check it out, and like we were surprised like. When it played for 3 nights back in, I think it was mid-September or whatever, right? One night, if you went, they gave you like a little poster. The second night, if you went, you got to see like a 30-minute making-of documentary or behind-the-scenes documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third night, you got to see a double bill of The Devil's Rejects with 3 from Hell. But we didn't get to see the double bill, but we did get to receive the poster when we were walking in. And then I went with my brother. And we just decided to stick around to see if there was anything after the credits or anything. And all of a sudden, bam, the documentary started playing. So we ended up sitting there for 30 more minutes watching that. So, it was cool. I got the best of kind of the whole run there just in that one night.
Yeah.
And then it came out the next day on Blu-ray, which I haven't been able to buy it yet, but I plan on purchasing it. But, yeah, my gut reaction or my initial reactions on that one, it was good. It's very comparable to Devil's Rejects. I will say, and I think I told Willie or someone else this, the way I thought, it's more of a sequel to Devil's Rejects than Devil's Rejects was a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, okay.
This feels like more of a direct sequel, so to speak. Definitely played it a lot closer. I don't think I'm giving too much away to say that like Sid Haig wasn't in it very much because of his health and everything. So it does have a different feel because of that. He's in it, and they make things logical as to why he's not in it very much. So whenever you guys get a chance to check it out, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I'm going to be picking that Blu-ray up pretty soon.
Yeah, like I said, the first chance I get, I'm going to go buy it. I mean, it was good, and I'd like to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and and all that. And the documentary was cool, which I'm sure is probably on the Blu-ray. But it'll be cool to see the other stuff like deleted scenes and all that, because I think the Blu-ray comes with like a director's cut or an unrated cut or something like that, which I'm not sure if that's the version that I saw or not. So that'll be interesting to see if there's any major differences in it.
Was it rated? Was it R-rated?
That's what I'm not sure. I think it was rated R, but I'm not dead sure of that, because I did notice, like I said, the Blu-ray had a rated R cut and an unrated cut. So I'm not sure which one I saw.
Which one played in the theater?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. My guess is I probably saw the rated R, I guess, but I don't know. So I guess I'll find out when I get the Blu-ray. But I enjoyed it though. I mean, it's definitely a sequel. Like it keeps moving in that same way. And very very similar in a lot of the things that they do in it to Devil's Rejects. So I think I know both of y'all are fans of House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, and a lot of our listeners are too. So I think if you enjoyed those, you'll definitely enjoy this. It feels different without as much Captain Spaulding. I'll say that. That's the only thing I'll throw out there, but so anyways, getting back to what this episode is about. This one is about us reminiscing about the last 18 episodes and also kind of giving our re-ratings for each episode. So whatever we rated a particular movie that we watched in that episode, this is our chance to go back and kind of give it a new rating if we wish. We can move it down, move it up, leave it the same, whatever, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of the ground rules. of this episode, and and like I said, we'll kind of reminisce and maybe we'll play a couple clips from some past episodes. We'll just have a little bit of fun with it, and hopefully, if you haven't listened to us, if for some reason this is the first one you picked up on, number one, we are a spoiler-filled podcast, so everything we talk about, when we start talking about a particular movie, we go into a deep dive of it and we spoil the movie. So we highly recommend, working ahead, so to speak. If you know what we're going to be watching on the next episode, or if you haven't listened to our past episodes, go watch the movie before you listen to our podcast. A lot of them are older movies anyways that you may have already seen, but if you haven't, go check them out before you listen, because we're going to spoil it for you. But like I said, if for whatever reason this is your jumping on point, this episode will give you a little bit of taste of what you can expect from this is episode 19, from episode 20 on. You kind of get a taste of what we're doing and what we're about.
You could pause it right now and watch 18 movies in a row.
And then come back to us, Justin.
I mean, unless you got a lot of time on your hands, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but whatever. All right, here's the list. Reanimator, Trick or Treat. All right, so if you want to get in contact with us, send us an email, any comments, suggestions, you can email them to us at allamericανspookshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at AASpookShow. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you search for All-American Spook Show, you'll find us there. Also on YouTube, we upload whole episodes, and we're just wrapping up our top 13 countdown, our top 13 horror films of all time, but they're kind of our own personal favorites, and I'm sure if we do this every year, it'll change year to year, the rankings of it, but this is basically kind of our own little personal favorite top 13 movies, and we've been going one by one, counting down to Halloween, so we just wrapped that up here on October 31st with our number one. So if you want to go to our YouTube page and check those out, you'll see each day, our top 13 each day. You can also go on tpublic.com. We have a presence there. You can go buy our logo T-shirts and mugs and pillows and whatever the hell else they throw the logo on. That's available there at tpublic.com. You just search for the All-American Spook Show. You should be able to find us.
When we talked about YouTube, and for anybody who might be jumping on and thinking, oh, well, I'll just watch them all on YouTube, where was it that we started with the full episodes? Because I forget, we didn't do the first few shows, right? We just did teasers on YouTube for the first few.
Yeah, I want to say, hold on, let me look at the list. I don't have YouTube up in front of me, but I want to say it was around episode 8 or 9, 10, somewhere around that range where we started putting up the full episodes.
Yeah, full.
I don't remember which one, but it's around that range, episode 8, 9, or 10. And I haven't gone back and, put those up. Up until that point, like you said, they were just teasers. It was like the first 15, 20 minutes of the podcast, and then you could go listen to it there. But like we said, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcast, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play Music. There's probably a couple others that I'm forgetting about. Pretty much any of the more popular podcast catchers, we're there. So if you can't find those particular episodes on YouTube, just go find us on one of those. You can find us. We're definitely on Podbean. You can find us. It's aaspookshow.podbean.com. On that page there, all of our episodes are there. You can download them and listen to them there if you can't on the other places. So we're all over. There's no excuses. We're free, and we're all over. There's no excuse for you not to listen to it. So help us out. And if you do, make sure to drop us like a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and all the other ones. That helps us out. That helps get the word out. Helps us get on the lists and everything, so to speak. So if you don't mind helping us out to do that. All right, so I guess without any further ado, we'll get into the episode-by-episode re-rating section of the show here. So we're getting to the Wayback Machine to pretty much almost exactly a year ago. And we're going to start with episode number 1, which was 1985's Reanimator, which was directed by Stuart Gordon. Who all was in it, Smoke? Give us a rundown of some actors you can think of right off the top of your head that was in this one.
We got Jeffrey Combs, of course, as Herbert West, and Barbara Crampton, David Gale, who played the doctor who gets his head lopped off.
Yeah.
I can't think of Dan's name right now. I think the guy that plays Dan, Meg's
something Abbott boyfriend. Or something, right? Or maybe that was his character's name. I'm blanking off the top of my head.
Oh, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger is stunt double.
Yeah,
stunt double.
what do you say, his body double or a stunt double or something?
Yeah.
All right, for this one, I guess we'll start. I guess I'll start with me. I gave it 4 stars. I think I'm going to stay there. I don't think there's any reason for me to go up or down with this one. I mean, I love the hell out of this movie, so I definitely can't go down. Nowhere to go but up. So I think I'm just going to stick with 4 though. Smoke, you gave it 5 stars.
Actually, I gave this one
the highest rating we can give.
Yeah, that's it's been one of those. I guess I can definitely see where you come from it from outside. I'm like, how could anybody possibly give this 5 stars? It's a great movie, but is it that? This is one of those personal ones for me that I saw and it's latched onto and watched umpteen thousand times from the time I first saw it on video till the time we watched it last for the podcast. I think I've actually seen it again after the podcast. So it's just a personal favorite. So I still got to keep it the 5 for me. Even that's probably the highest one I think I've had in the whole entire podcast so far.
I believe so. There hasn't been too many 5s for many of us. So I'm not looking at it directly, but that might be the only 5 that's been given. So
yeah.
But can't.
And again, like I said, that's just a personal thing for me.
And you can't go past 5, so.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, yeah. I can't do a 5 and.
Well, I guess technically you could if you wanted to, but.
Well, I mean, it would have to write an essay to get the extra credit.
Yep.
This isn't Spinal Tap. These amps don't go to 11.
Yeah. Turn it up to 11 and break the knob off. All right, so you're going to stick there. Will, you gave it 3 3/4 stars.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bump it up to a 4. I really enjoyed this movie. I've actually watched it at least one other time since we did it for the show. So, yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It actually, if y'all have been listening, made it into my top 13.
I believe during the first episode, you said that you were going to go back and let your wife watch that movie. Did you ever do that?
No, she never watched it.
Yeah. Was that like, I'm not watching this kind of thing, or you just never found the time to?
Oh, no, we never found the time. I mean, if y'all been listening, I've got 2 young kids, so it's kind of hard to fit.
Got around kids' family time with the reanimator. Yeah, that wouldn't work, yeah.
We actually did.
Because you see here, kids, the head is giving. Never mind.
It's giving a head. Or at least tempting to.
And then this, kids, is what you call a cock blocker now. Herbert West.
A couple of little clips that I'll play here. One clip is our first mention that has been mentioned in a number of podcasts since then. Maybe not every single show, but a lot of them. Is the phrase 1985. It's about 36 minutes into the first episode was the first mention of where we're trying to figure out what the hell is going on here, and one of us just says, "Well, 1985. That's 1985 for you." So that's where that phrase came from. If you're wondering later on, it came from the very first episode there.
All of the exploitation, sexual elements, and everything was Stuart Gordon. Well, I don't know if it's Stuart Gordon or not, or whoever was the writers and producers and everything of not just that movie, but From Beyond that came after it, and a lot of those.
No, it's called.
They put Lovecraft.
It's called 1985.
That's true, yeah.
And we've reused it in a few because I don't know what the count is, but I know there's probably been at least one more, if not 2 more, that were shot in 1980 or came out in 1985.
Oh yeah.
Return of the Living Dead, for instance.
Yeah, there's been a few. I think Street Trash was around the same time, and it seems like there might have been another 1 or 2 there too. So yeah, there's been a few in that. And also, this was the episode where. We were having a lot of technical difficulties still trying to figure out, what the hell was going on here since that was our first episode. And Will actually, first and foremost, you got a ticket on the way over to my house to record that episode, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it would work out a little bit better if me and you were in the same room, so we could kind of, blow through some of the technical difficulties. And on the way through, I blew through a red light.
And then it turned out that it wouldn't work out with you in the same room anyway, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because then...
So you got that ticket for no reason right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Because then he had to end up sitting in his car outside of my house. I don't even know what all the technical difficulties were that led to this, but that's what ended up happening is I'm in the quote-unquote studio recording. He's in his car outside the house recording. And... Then about 1 hour and 8 minutes in, I've got it earmarked here. This is when you can hear Will scuffling around in the car. Like, where'd this come from? And I hear Willie getting out of town.
It's down to 4%.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And I can tell too because your audio levels went to shit.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I need to turn off the.
Unable to place call on your Bluetooth phone.
You know, I think I'm not going to edit this out. I want this all in.
Better put it on my seatbelt, otherwise we'll keep getting dings.
This is pretty good. Luckily, we can edit, but I'm not gonna do it.
Buckle up for safety in this podcast.
Yeah, buckle up, because this is the bumpy part. You could hear like the dong dong dong, and then you could hear the doors shut. He's getting in and out of the car and stuff. So, yeah, I wasn't gonna edit that out. That was too funny. So. That was a little highlight from that episode. So, episode 1, Reanimator. The conclusion is Smoke and I are staying the same. Will, you bumped yours up to 4 stars, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so now we'll move on to episode number 2, which was Trick or Treat. Not to be confused with Trick or Treat or Treats or anything else you can come up with.
Trickity-treatity?
Yeah. Is there a movie called Tricks? And it's not a porn. Does that exist? Yeah, this one's another one where I think we all gave it a pretty good rating. I'll start with myself. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. I think once again I'm gonna stay there. Smoke, you gave it 4 stars.
Let's see. I'm gonna go. I think I'll go with a 3 3/4 on it. I think I gave it a little bit. Not that I don't. I do love it. 3 3/4 is good. I think it's still a good solid rating, but it's just might have overshot it a little bit there.
Will, you also gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm going to hold it 4. Especially with these first 2 movies, I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd never seen either one of these, and I walked away from viewing these and enjoyed both of them. So yeah, I'm going to stick with 4.
So the only change there is Smoke is going to bump his down just a nudge to 3 3/4 from 4 stars. This was really. I'm not going to say it was an uneventful episode, but there wasn't any like big moments that happened like in episode 1. I'd say probably one of the more funnier things was when we were. I wouldn't say funny. It's just funny the way it all turned out. I'll play this clip talking about like what's going to come for Suspiria. That'll be what we talk about in the next episode, the 1977 classic Suspiria. Will, have you ever seen it?
Never seen it. Never heard of it. After we decided on this, I watched the trailer. All I can say is that looks like a ton of just 70s weird.
I would agree. Yeah. It's another one of my personal favorites, but I could definitely agree with that. And it is going to be a ton of 70s weird.
Oh yeah, for anyone out there that's ever seen that, yeah, that's the easiest way to explain it. 70s weird. It was kind of funny hearing like right before you actually watched it, the reaction to it.
I don't know.
We'll see. This trailer looks kind of funny, but we'll.
And then after you saw the whole movie, you're like, I don't know.
I agree with my idea of the trailer.
All right, so I guess with that, since Suspiria was such a big one, episode 3, we'll just go ahead and move into that. So, episode 3 was the horror cult classic Suspiria from 1977, I think, right? Smoke?
Yep.
Sounds about right. I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
All right, so for Suspiria, I gave it 4 stars. Solid movie, and I think I'm going to stay right there. I mean, like, yeah, and there's a lot of holes in this movie, and you can poke it full, like Swiss cheese. But it just kind of, like it's one of those like staples of like, Italian horror movies that I've just always enjoyed that one. So I think I'm going to stay there. Smoke, you gave it 4.5 stars, which is pretty high. I mean, considering 5, like we said, is as high as you can go. That's good praise.
Yeah, this is
what do you say?
That's true. I'm gonna keep it at 4.5, and I think it's just another one of those sort of watershed horror movies for me at the time when it came out. Again, like you said, I know you could drive a car through the holes in this thing in certain cases. But I mean, Italian horror it wasn't the first Italian horror movie I saw. I saw quite a few that led up to it because Suspiria wasn't released on VHS in the U.S. for a while. So the tail end of the 80s or beginning, maybe even 1990 or so. So I saw it later on into it. So I'd already gotten accustomed to the way Italian horror movies were. And they aren't always the best as far as like, telling a coherent plot line or story. beginning to end. They're more visually oriented. So the Goblin soundtrack, just the stylized violence and everything in it, all that stuff just hits with me with Italian horror. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the 4.5 on this one.
So the main event time, Will.
Yeah.
At the time, you gave it 2.5 stars, which it's not.
What was I thinking?
It's not horrible, but you're halfway to 5, so you're looking pretty good. Where are you at now?
Well, after I've had time to reflect, meditate, 1.5. There are some funny things in this, but over doing the podcast, I've realized that I like comedy horror. One thing that I don't like is Suspiria.
Which is why loyal listeners know that it's kind of become a running joke. You're going to give it the old Suspiria, huh? But now the bar has been lowered even further. Now it's moving down to a 1.5 stars for Suspiria.
I think that's got to be the lowest of the entire podcast for anybody, right?
I'd say so.
I had the highest with Reanimator for 5.
We're about to go through them one at a time, so we'll find out. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's probably the lowest of anything.
I think that might be the first one. Period. I mean, one and whatever, whether it be 1.5, 1.75. I think that's the first one.
See, now I have to, because we don't plan too far ahead, like the movies that we're going to watch. Now I'm going to have to make sure that I find a movie that is a flaming pile of dog piss.
Yeah. No, we definitely need to do that because we're still fresh starting out. I mean, we're 18 going on 19 episodes in.
Yep.
But when you think of the grand scheme of things, like how many horror movies there are out there, we're still just skimming the top, and we're picking things that the ones that we've seen, they're the ones that we really like. The ones that we haven't seen, we're still picking sort of, top tier movies in a way.
Some of them,
as far as budgets and things. So yeah some of them. So yeah, we definitely got to scrape the bottom here at some point and get some real stinkers in there.
Yeah.
Just for the fun of it as well.
Will, trust me, this isn't the bottom. So we may have to have a re-rating segment next year if we throw a couple of like dog turds at your door. Then you might,
I'm sure we'll come across something where it's going to be god awful. But I think for me with this one, I just wasn't into to that style of movie making. I think the reason I probably rated it so high then was because I enjoyed doing the podcast with y'all. Mm-hmm. So it probably threw a little bit of extra entertainment into it for me.
Yeah.
Because if I wouldn't have had it to talk to y'all about, I'd just been like, why? Why did I watch this?
I just would have pondered life and looked at a mirror.
Is there some clothes to be folded or something?
There was a handful of funny clips from this movie too, that or from our episode about this movie that I'll throw in here.
The room full of barbed wire.
Yeah. I'm getting to that. Where we talk about the dude that drove the taxi cab, where he keeps where she says "Esa Strasse," and it's like he doesn't understand.
Yeah, he's like,
take me to Esa Strasse. Esa Strasse.
That's what I said, motherfucker.
Where was it? She told him to take her to wherever she was going, like to the ballet school or whatever.
Yeah, Esa Strasse or something like that.
She has to say it like 18 times before the dude. Yeah. And then finally, like, he doesn't, it's like he doesn't hear her. She shows him like a piece of paper or something. He's, oh, yes, Esa Strasse.
Yeah, I guess they're like playing off the fact that she's saying it, but she's not pronouncing it right quite enough for him to get the whatever American accent that she's putting. Although when he says it back, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was about to say. Can you take me to Pizza Hut? I don't know what you're talking about.
Pizza Hut, yes.
It's a Strasse.
Pretty funny clip there. And then, of course, we can't forget the enchanted door latch of the room where, like, somebody's on the other side with a razor blade and just cannot open this fucking door. Like,
and whoever it is coming after has got like a razor blade.
Like straight razor, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a straight razor, and he's trying to like unlatch the door. And,
from the outside,
and he's just scratching at it for 10 minutes and cannot lift this door latch.
Meanwhile, like, she could have just kept her hand over the door. The person would have never got in, and she wouldn't have got cut.
Yeah, because he's got the strength of like a 6-month-old trying to. And
I don't think we ever really find out who that person was. It's probably a little kid.
So let me get this right. You can phase through a stain of glass, but you can't knock open the lock?
No. A witch's greatest foe is weak door locks.
Yes, that's right. No door.
Turns out it was enchanted. That's what happened.
Yeah. Enchanted door latch.
And then, of course, what follows after that is the room full of razor wire that she falls into.
But what was the whole purpose of this whole room full of razor wire? It was just for her to fall into it for that scene, you know.
And I'm pretty sure when she went through the window, she looked down.
Would have seen all this, yeah. Even if it wasn't razor wire, this wire is probably going to get me tangled up pretty good.
And it's not like it's a dark room. I mean, it's one of these weird Argento lit rooms. So she looks down and then just clearly just jumps straight to hell into it.
And here goes the thought process. All right, I can stay in this one room where somebody clearly can't get in.
Yeah.
Or I could jump out this window into razor wire.
She definitely should have just stayed in there. That's for sure.
So there's plenty of shenanigans here, but I'd say for the full effect for that episode, you need to go listen to the whole thing because it's pretty good. I think by episode 3 we were starting to hit our stride. That's just my opinion, and that one was pretty good. Next up, episode 4, we watched Terrified, which was a more recent movie. I think it just came out like in 2017, and it's an Argentinian film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's foreign language, so they're speaking Spanish or whatever. And that
was we had a first for our podcast at that point. This is the first movie that none of us had seen, I think, right?
Yeah, none of us have seen that because I think even still, I could be wrong, but I think even still to this day, it's just like a Shudder exclusive. So you probably not as many of people have seen that. We certainly had not seen it at the time. For this one, I gave it 3.25 stars. I think I'm going to knock it down to a 3. Not that that's that big, a huge fall or anything, but I think that probably more follows my feelings about it. I did enjoy it. Just maybe like I've said before, like the sliding scale kind of changes once you start watching other movies and comparing it to other things. I'm just going to have to bring it down just a nudge. So I think I'm going to go with a 3. Smoke, you gave it 3.5 stars.
No, I think I'm going to bump it down as well to the 3. I'm going to go down half a star to 3. And like you said too, this is a fresh movie. This is only seeing it that one time when we did the podcast. I think I watched it at least one other time afterward, and I still like it a lot. But the more you see something, the more it's the same way with music. The more if you hear a new album, your initial thought might be, "Oh, I really love this. I'm going to give it this amount of stars or whatever." Then you listen to it, and either it grows on you, or maybe after you've listened to it a few times, you don't like it quite as much. So it's one of those things where I think the more I watch it, and this one could change too. The next time we do a podcast, I might even watch it again and have changed it a little bit. So I'm going to go down to 3 stars on it. Not much of a change after seeing it a second time.
I'd say next year what we should do is kind of have like maybe we won't go episode by episode like we're doing right here, but if there's a couple of these episodes that even next year you'd like to go say, you know what, I saw it again, I'd like to change that again, up or down. Yeah. Maybe we can afford a couple wild cards, so to speak, next year for that.
Yeah, for me it'll be like that for brand new movies sometimes, like because you watch it and then whatever your initial reaction is kind of one way or the other, and then you watch it again and again, and it may go up or down. So. Yeah. Not so much for the old movies. Probably not. I mean, certainly not the really old movies. Those are pretty. I've seen those so many times now that those ratings will probably stay the same for me. But yeah, I know some of the new ones I might change up again depending on how many other times I see it.
Will, for this one, you gave it 3.5 stars, just like Smoke did. So where are you at now? Are you staying the same, up or down?
I'm going to drop this one down to 3.25. I enjoyed it, but like the farther you get away from this one, like this was strictly just a visual effects jump scare movie. Like the story for this isn't quite as deep as some of the other movies that we've done. But having said that, I still enjoyed it for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, like I could definitely sit there and watch it again. So don't think that my 3 is a bad thing. Me bumping it down to a 3, in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just kind of, like I said, where it slides in now compared to some other things.
I mean, it's not like you bumped it down to 1.25 or
1.5. You set up a. It's not like you lowered the bar for the old Suspiria line. You know how in baseball there's the Mendoza line. You know, for, what is it, like batting under 200
This is
or
a
something?
Suspiria line.
Yeah, it's a Suspiria line. So we all came down just a tad, but not very far. I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement on that one. All right, on to episode number 5, which was another milestone episode. 1985's, once again, The Return of the Living Dead. This is also where Will kind of gave like a little backstory on his kind of experience with it, like growing up, watching it when he was a little kid, living next to a graveyard, right?
Yeah. Good times.
We also had another recurring bit from this one is Bert and Ernie. About 51 minutes in is where we really like realized, wait a minute, Bert and Ernie, and then that became a whole thing. And then of course that's a good question, Bert. You know, we've said that. We've said that pretty much ever since episode 5. That's been another line. That one in 1985. So
yeah, which we got
to use.
Point,
Bert.
Well, it's a good question, Bert. Yeah, and there were a couple other.
Oh, and this was also another first too. It was whereas the previous episode none of us had seen that one. This is the first one that we had all seen.
Yeah, I think so. Like across the board, we had all seen this one and loved it.
All seen it before, or at least once before. Yeah.
That being said, you know, even before I get into the star ratings, you know, we all love this one because I think this is pretty universally loved for most people that like these kind of movies. I gave it 4 stars. I'm staying right there. Smoke, you gave it 4 stars.
Yep. I'm sticking with the 4 definitely. This is another one of those watershed movies for me. Pretty sure that one will never change. Well, it's never going to go down. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. At this point, I don't think that's one that's like, you know what? I don't know. That one just kind of is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reanalyzation of this one. It's just kind of you either love it or hate it.
Yep. And I really can't think of anybody that I've ever come across that said, you know, that movie's so overrated. I think I hate that movie. I've heard that about a lot of horror movies and things, like Exorcist, from The Shining to whatever. But I've never heard anybody who's seen Return of the Living Dead say, oh, that movie's overrated and stuff. Yeah.
But you know what you have heard him say? Send more cops.
Send more cops.
Send more paramedics.
Will, you also gave it 4 stars. So I think this was also the first one where across the board we all gave it the same score. What do you say now?
Oh yeah, I'm still hanging right there. I mean, if anybody went back and like listened to the top 13 movies, I've got a ton of zombie stuff in there. I love zombie movies, so yeah, this one's sticking there with me.
That's good news, Bert.
It's good news, Bert.
All right, on to episode number 6. This is 2018's sequel, reboot. I don't know how the hell, I think we were kind of questioning how you phrase it even back then, but Halloween, which I guess it's more of a sequel than it is a reboot. It's a direct sequel to the original John Carpenter's original Halloween.
Yep, pretty much ignoring anything else that came after the original Halloween.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this one was slightly divisive even then when we saw it. I gave it 3 stars. I think I'm actually going to bump this up just a little bit to 3.5 stars. I think 3 stars is kind of doing it a little bit of injustice in my mind. So I'm going to go with 3.5 stars. Smoke, you gave it 3 stars as well. Where are you at now?
This one I don't remember how many times I'd seen it. I don't know if that was only that one time I'd seen it before when we did the podcast. But since, I've probably seen it a total of 3 times now at least. I enjoyed it, successively a little bit more each time. So, I might bump mine up as well to 3.5 on this one. I mean, not 3, 3.25. Go with 3.25.
3.25?
Yep.
Will, you gave it 3.5 stars. So where are you going to land on that one?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to hang right there. I mean, I enjoyed this movie.
So you're going to stick with 3.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing since we reviewed it. But I did catch that one part where it's like that continuous shot, where there's basically like one edit in the shot, which kind of like midway through the movie where Michael Myers is out, now he's like back in the town on Halloween night, and he's and he goes through and stabs the woman that's in the window and everything. But it's basically like one edit. That was an awesome scene. I saw like that part and a little bit past that about a month or so ago. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed the movie. I just think my original 3 stars was probably a little bit of an injustice. I had to bump it up a bit. So moving on to
I might also take that back. I mean, not take it back my rating, but I think I might have seen it the second time when I gave it that 3. I think the first time I saw it was when the hype was so built up for it in my own mind too, as what it was going to be and everything. And then I saw it and I probably would have rated it. I might have even rated it 2.5 stars at that time. I think so. I think I had seen it a second time when we did that podcast.
So we keep.
So it's a good thing we didn't do it the first time. So really would have had to bump it up.
So if we keep re-rating this thing, eventually you'll get it up to 5 stars in about 10 years.
About 10 years?
Yeah, just keep going up a fraction of a point.
You know, I like this one.
I
like this one more than the original.
No.
Hey, I've heard some people say that about Rob Zombie. Now, as much as I like Rob Zombie movies, I couldn't even see me saying that about a Rob Zombie movie. There's people out there that hate the original and I don't know about this new one, but actually like Rob Zombie's better than the original.
Mm-hmm.
I like Rob Zombie's, but I certainly don't put it, above the original. But I guess there could be some people out there that actually put this one above the original too. So it's a strange world. Yeah.
I actually didn't read the article, typical of today's society, right? You just see a headline and then you move on. But I saw a headline that said that Rob Zombie was quoted as saying that he actually liked his Halloween 2 better than his Halloween 1. Like I said, I don't know what the ins and outs of it were, but apparently that was his opinion, is that he liked his second one better than his first one. So,
The Legend of Curly's Gold?
Yeah.
No, I think it was Halloween 2 Electric Boogaloo, I think.
No, you're both
Secret
wrong.
of the Ooze?
Secret of the Ooze, yeah.
Secret of the Ooze.
Well, that's right, Bert.
It's intermission, it's intermission. It's intermission, it's intermission. Ice cream, candy, lemonade too. And there's a hot dog waiting for you. The popcorn's popping and it's ready to go. You know all the great food is stealing the show. Get up out your seat and get yourself a tasty treat down at the snack bar. Snack bar.
All right, so moving on to episode 7. Another cult classic, the Melt movie, from 1987, Street Trash. Another episode that we had a lot of fun with.
Oh yeah, you can't help but have fun with that movie.
Yeah. In there we talked, there was some clips, we talked about the doorman. I think, Will, you said he kind of looked like Kevin Bacon or something like that.
To me, he almost kind of looked like Kevin Bacon. Not exactly.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's got those features, definitely.
Yeah. A young hot Kevin Bacon.
Whoa.
What? Footloose.
Nothing,
come on, man.
Go ahead. I had to put up token resistance. We're good now.
At least you recognize what it is. This was also the debut of the Junk Hole. When we're talking about this weird sex, I don't know, maybe rape scene. I don't know what the hell was going on with this woman, and they live in a pile of tires in a junkyard, and he takes her in there and has sex with her, and then all these hobos bust in like they're all zombies.
They're outside like zombies, then, just creeping up and watching.
Yeah, they're watching, and they bust in and grab a hold of her and drag her off, and then they find her corpse dead later. And it even goes even further from there. Just go watch it. Go listen to the episode. And they gather around, and they're watching him through the tires have this weird, awkward sex with this woman inside the junk hole.
Oh my goodness!
Wait, what, are we talking about? Oh, okay, we're talking about where they were. Okay.
And that's the new name of this podcast. Welcome to Junk Hole.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to the Junk Hole Podcast.
So, with this one, episode 7, Street Trash, I gave it 3 stars. I think I'm going to stay right there. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to warrant bumping it. I'm definitely not going to bump it down. I don't think there's any reason for me to bump it up. So I'm going to stay with 3 stars. Smoke, you gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm going to hang with 4 on this one because it's yet another one. Like I said, when it comes to these older movies, especially ones that I've seen over and over and over again, those pretty much stick with you. Those ratings are pretty much set for me. And it just has to do with my enjoyment of it over the years and various situations or people I've shown it to or experienced with it or whatever. But yeah, I'm going to keep it at the 4.
Oh, I think this movie sticks with you, too, for sure. when I can still remember, some of the characters' names, even though it's been a while since we watched it, like Wizzy and Bronson and all these others.
Wizzy and Bronson and...
And that old black hobo.
And it has that one scene in there that you will never forget. I don't care how many years it's been since you've seen it.
I'd say there's a few scenes in there you'll probably never forget.
Oh, there's a few scenes, but in
particular, I know.
The castration end over end.
Yep.
Keep away game, that, yeah. Of course, there's that decapitation by acetylene, launching in the acetylene tank. That's pretty high up there as far as kills in a horror movie for me.
Oh my God! You know what? I think we're just gonna stop now and go watch that movie. That's it. Good night, folks. Will, you gave
get yourself a 12-pack in that movie, and you got a good night right now.
Yeah. Go get you a bottle of Tenafly Viper.
There you go.
Will, you gave it 3 1/4 stars. I know
I'm gonna stay right there.
I know you're not gonna lower it, so you're gonna stay or raise it.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold it right there. Yeah, that was a good movie. Just if you've never seen it, you need to see that once at least.
Yeah, that's one of those movies where, like you said, I'm gonna sit my wife down and make her watch this. This is one of those where you need the other people to witness this, like Mad Max Fury Road. Witness me.
I don't know that I would show my wife this one. I don't want her to get any ideas.
Yeah, you don't want her rooting around in the cellar to find a crate of old liquor to sell to people, is what you're saying.
Or carry around a knife, just in general.
Or to have weird hobo sex in the junk hole. All right, so we move on. Onward and upward.
Nice segue.
Yeah.
So we're going to toss to the next movie or something. Toss something. No.
Yeah.
End over into the next movie.
Nice tight spiral.
We're going head over heels to the next flick.
Head over balls. Let's go.
2003's modern classic, House of 1,000 Corpses. Rob Zombie's movie debut or directorial debut, writing debut, producing debut, whatever. I mean, he was all over this, and the beginning of a mini little franchise with this one and The Devil's Rejects and 3 from Hell Now. So this is where it all began. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I think I'm going to stay there. I don't see any reason to bring it up or down. So personally, I think I'm going to stay there. Smoke, you gave it 3 stars. Where are you at now?
I think I might actually bump it up 3 1/4.
Smoke says 3 1/4. That's on the cover of the DVD. By
I need the drum roll thing. 3 3/4 stars. 3 1/4 stars. You know, Star Search. Remember? Every time I give something a 1/4 or a 3/4 rating, I can't help but think of Star Search.
Oh yeah.
And there's a portion of our audience that's like, "What on earth are you talking about?"
And then the other portion says, "Yep, you are that old, aren't you?"
Kids, it was kind of like American Idol, except with an old dude that hosted it. That's about all I can say.
You know, here's Johnny. Oh, you mean Jack Nicholson? No, not Jack Nicholson.
No. The Shining? What?
Ed McMahon.
Now you're all confusing it. So what'd you say? 3 1/4?
3 1/4 from you.
3 1/4 stars. Will, you gave House of 1,000 Corpses 3.5 stars.
I'm going to stay right there. It's got one of my favorite characters in just about any movie is Captain Spaulding, and I love this movie. So yeah, I'm going to hang right there.
All right, so we move on to episode number 9. We right around the time that the 2019's new version of Pet Sematary came out, we went back and we watched the original 1989 version of Pet Sematary that was actually, the screenplay was actually written by Stephen King himself. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I think I'm going to stay right there. Smoke, you also gave it 3.5 stars.
I'm sticking there with the 3.5 as well. Now, I did see the new one at the time we were doing this podcast, and that if we were giving out ratings at that time, I would have rated it somewhere in the middle in there, maybe 2.5 or something like that. But then seeing that one again actually lowered it. We have to do that at some point, but that movie is... I'd actually go lower on the new Pet Sematary if we were doing that one.
That doesn't shock me, but I still haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd even say... I know you're going to see it.
Well,
you're going to see it. Yeah, I would almost say, don't even bother, but, you'll see it. It's got some redeeming qualities in the cinematography and whatnot, but, too many changes were made for me personally that were different from the novel. It didn't matter whether they were different from the other movie. It's his own movie, but they were different from the novel, and I couldn't get past some of that.
Yeah, well, and the movie's so closely tied because it was written by Stephen King, not just from his book, but he actually wrote it. So
true,
and he had a hand in it. So yeah, it's about as true as it's going to get.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure if it's anything different from that, then yeah, it's going to go directly to the left from this version. Will, you gave it 3 stars. What do you say now?
Yeah. I think I'm just going to stay right there. Yeah.
Deep insights from Will. Not really much can be said. I think those are fair scores, and we all enjoyed it. go back and listen to that episode. I think you'll enjoy it. So we move on to episode number 10. And we've hit the double digits. We go back and watch a more modern movie from Eli Roth, The Green Inferno, which has been extremely popular on YouTube since we uploaded the full episode on there. We got a lot of hits on that one for whatever reason. I think across the board we all enjoyed it. It's just, it's kind of another one of those kind of movies. I gave it 2.5 stars. I think that's, considering my scale, I think that's fair, and I'm going to stay there. Smoke, you also gave it 2.5 stars. What do you say now?
Yep. That's going with that one still. It's split down the middle. It's got its moments, and you really have to be a huge Eli Roth fan to give it higher ratings, because he's got his own filmmaking style, and it's definitely prevalent in this film as far as the offbeat humor in places where you wouldn't have humor, and that's funny. That does work out sometimes, but sometimes it takes me out of the movie too. Yeah, I'm sticking with my 2.5 on it.
Will, you actually gave this the highest score of all three of us. You gave it 3 stars. What do you say now, looking back on it?
Yeah, I'm gonna come down and meet y'all at 2.5. No, just again, I think especially in this one, I got caught up in the entertainment of talking about it with y'all, and I probably gave it more than I should have.
Shame.
Yeah, I think if I had seen this, if this had been the first time I'd seen Green Inferno when we did this podcast, I might have been tempted also to rate it a little bit higher. I haven't seen it now, I don't know, maybe 3 times. It just, it's got that humor, and it's got the gore, what you want to call the gore money shot, which is like one big payoff as far as damn, that's fucked up. And then after that, it's got the little humor of, the drug, baking that into the body and everything. And that was funny for what it was, too. But then some of the humor kind of will wear a little bit thin after repeated viewing.
Yeah, really, honestly, I only remember a couple of things from this, that will always probably stick with me when I think about this movie. Number one, that the first 30 minutes are useless.
Yeah.
That you can just chop it off and start from there. Number 2, the one first big cannibal scene that you see, that one sticks with you because that's probably the most gruesome scene, right then and there. That's pretty much it after that. It's like there's some message about tree hugging in there somewheres. I can't figure it out, but it's not horrible, but it's worth seeing once. And like you said, it's got its spots, but overall,
Well, past the general viewing of the movie, I think the one thing that I'll remember about doing the podcast, especially so far, is I'm sitting here watching this movie, and obviously this is something you can't watch with your family around.
Oh yeah, I remember.
My wife and kids start coming into the house, and I feel like I'm watching a dirty movie, and I'm like, whoa, don't come in yet, don't come in.
Yeah, because didn't you say it was right at that ultimate cannibal scene? Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me at least pull my pants up.
You sick bastard.
My wife comes in, what are you watching?
Don't worry about it. You're all red-faced and out of breath. So yeah, it's there. Honestly, my recollection is go back and listen to our episode number 10 about it. You'll probably enjoy it a little bit more than the movie itself.
Yeah, because I think I mentioned in that episode when we were doing it that as you're watching it, if you've ever seen any of the Italian cannibal films, you can see that, okay, this is an homage to Cannibal Holocaust, this is that, and then I feel like I'd rather just be watching Cannibal Holocaust or Cannibal Ferox or any of the other ones.
So then you just cut it off halfway through and put in your VHS of Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, because at some point, I don't remember where it was a music cue that I guess he bought from whoever owns the rights to it, but it was a Cannibal Holocaust music cue in the credits or somewhere in the sequence, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's from Cannibal Holocaust. And then it just made me think, I should be watching that right now.
Yeah. There's like a little memory bubble over your head of you wistfully watching Cannibal Holocaust and of Will playing with himself watching The Green Inferno.
Much mirroring the, what's his name? I can't remember that guy's name. What's the guy who was like the sleazeball kind of scumbag guy in there?
Yeah, the guy sitting in the corner.
Jerking off in the corner.
What the hell's wrong with you, man? He's just trying to relieve the stress. Jesus. And remember, they left it open.
See, that's one of those pure Eli Roth moments right there. It's like, what the fuck? If you've seen any other Eli Roth movie, you know that's just that's his style. Totally inappropriate humor at whatever moments that shouldn't be there.
And just remember,
that part was pretty funny.
They did leave it open for a sequel, so just get ready for
That's true.
Green Inferno 2 one of these days. All right, so now we move on to episode 11, another classic, 1986's Critters, the one that kind of started a franchise. You know, there's been 3 or 4 movies since, and here just in this year, there's been a Critters series on Shudder and a new movie that I'm pretty sure has Dee Wallace in it as well, that supposed to be debuting on Sci-Fi at one point or another during the month of October. I think it did. But yeah, so it's still, the franchise is still alive and well today. This is the one that started it. I gave it 3 stars. I think that's probably about right in my opinion. Smoke, you gave it 3.5.
I'm sticking with the 3.5 on this one too. It's another one of those that I've seen countless times, and seeing it again for this podcast, it didn't change my mind any one way or the other as far as how I like it. So sticking with a 3.5.
Will, you gave it 3 1/4 stars, so basically right in between Smoke and I. So what do you say now?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick there.
I think there were some pretty funny moments from this episode too. You need to go back and check it out. But honestly, I'm going to recommend you go back and check out every episode. Completely unbiased opinion, but no, I think there were some pretty funny moments. I think we had a good time with it, so go check that out. All right, we're coming down the home stretch here. Episode number 12, we saw the modern movie from 2014, Annabelle, which was the second movie of the Conjuring universe, and started its own little mini shoot-off of the Annabelle movies. Came out of this from the first Conjuring movie. Definitely a successful movie for sure. And we all gave it a pretty fair rating. I gave it 3 stars. I think I'm going to stay there. But Smoke, you actually gave it a lower rating. You gave it 2.5 stars. Are you going to change that, or what do you think now?
No, I think I'm going to stick with that one. It's just that I saw, as I think you did too, you saw The Conjuring right before you saw Annabelle?
Yeah, I actually watched The Conjuring like right before I watched this.
Oh, right before?
So it was kind of like, okay. It's not as good as that. So that actually probably kind of lowered it for me a little bit. If I hadn't done that, it might have been.
Dude, that's why I think mine is that way. Is just because I'd actually seen The Conjuring a few times before Annabelle came out, and that movie, I love that movie. And then by the time Annabelle came out, I was really, excited for it. And it is what it is, which is not a bad movie, but I didn't find it to be nearly as, it's kind of a letdown a little bit after seeing Conjuring. And actually like some of the Annabelle sequels better than this first one. But yeah, I'm going to stick with my 2.5 on this one.
And
I think it's a solid enough movie. It's just didn't go certain places I just wanted it to go. Kind of felt a little conventional in its storytelling, I guess, which is not always a bad thing. It's got hits all those buttons that, ghost type horror movies and paranormal type horror movies usually hit. So yeah, 2.5 still.
Will, you gave it 3 3/4 stars, so it was definitely higher than either of us. What do you say now, looking back on it?
Actually, I think I'm going to stick there on that one. That was, kind of my entry into the Conjuring universe, and considering that at that point I hadn't seen the original Conjuring, I thought it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And maybe sometimes, this just goes to show you that sometimes our star ratings are going to be, I'm not going to say necessarily, well, I guess you could say they're going to be a little skewed because of maybe some other circumstances that don't have anything directly to do with this particular movie. If you understand what I mean. Like I said, I had just watched The Conjuring, so this one was like, I like The Conjuring better. So, it was apples to oranges. Maybe that's not a fair way to directly grade this particular movie, but it just kind of is where my headspace was and is, so that's just a good example, I think, of how other things can skew your view, so to speak, of how you may or may not grade these things. I think it's a great movie for what it is. Great period type of horror movie. Although sometimes that time period feels a little wibbly wobbly, but I think in some ways it did capture it pretty good. So it's I definitely enjoyed it, and I think we all did. It's just that's kind of where we are with it. Once again, go back and listen to episode 12, Annabelle.
I mean, I did enjoy it this time around more than I did because I think I probably only had seen it once. Time before this podcast was in the theaters when it first came out. Now, having watched it again for this podcast, I did. If I had rated it back then, I probably would have rated it maybe a 2 or somewhere in there. So my appreciation of it did rise a little bit watching it again. Back then, when I first saw it at the theater, I might have been tempted to give it a 2.
Suspiria line, you mean? Just right above?
Well,
right above the Suspiria line?
Yeah, right above the Suspiria line. That's it. But no, I did enjoy it more this time. This second time, and again, it has to do with that expectation. Once you see it, and it had, of course, it was going to have hype around it because it's the first sequel of sorts to, or prequel, whatever you want to call it, to The Conjuring. So you have certain expectations going into it. When they're not met, then you can't necessarily judge it fairly at that point. So, having seen it again the second time when we did the podcast, it was my enjoyment of it was definitely more than that first time. I could appreciate it outside of not expecting anything else out of it.
All right, Spook Show listeners, just for you, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Like we've said before, if you do this, you listen to it, or you get you a book, you get your one free book in the trial, and you decide, you know what, Audible's not for me, you can cancel it, but you get to keep your free book, which is pretty cool of Audible to do. That being said, though, I mean there's going to be so many books that you'll want to listen to. You probably won't even want to cancel it. Smoke, have you been able to check out anything on Audible yet?
Yeah, I know. I've been wanting to get back into this author named Brian Lumley. He wrote the Necroscope series. I don't even know how many books that series is up to now, but I know he's on there, and so I'm going to probably delve back into those shortly. Beginning with the number 1, Necroscope. So
there you go. I mean, that's just one example, and a lot of these. Well, because you've listened to some of the Star Wars books, a lot of these aren't just read, word for word by one person, not really kind of getting into it or whatever, just reading it page for page. Some of these are actually kind of acted out, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are some books, say like Ready Player One, where, it is strictly just somebody reading, and they'll change their voice slightly for each character, but you'll get to something like Star Wars, and since, it's part of the Star Wars universe, they have a ton of sound effects that they throw in throughout the book. Some people love it, some people don't, so I would at least, give it a listen and see what you think.
So yeah, I mean, that's just a couple of examples of some stuff you can get with your trial, or if you decide to stick with it and listen to, book after book. Those are just a few good examples of what to expect. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. Go get it, guys, and hope you enjoy it. All right, so that leads us to episode number 13. We talked about 1983's Sleepaway Camp, which is definitely a cult classic for one small, big reason. I don't know however you'd phrase that, but for mostly just one weird-ass reason. I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I think I'm going to stay there with that. I definitely enjoy this movie, just because it's it's almost like a time capsule of the 80s, and then you got the weirdness of the little subplot and the ending of it and everything. I mean, just for the end shock value, it's worth sitting down, someone down that's never seen this before, and let them watch it. It's one of those kind of movies like we talked about with Street Trash and a couple others. But and I've seen it a number of times and I enjoyed it, but I just can't put it up above a 3 stars. I don't know. It's just me. I'm right at 2 3/4. Smoke, you gave it 3 stars though. What do you say?
Yep. Oh yeah. I'm gonna stick with that 3 as well. It's definitely fun. It's a fun movie, and it's got that twist that just no other slasher movie had at that time. A lot of hijinks went on at Camp Tuckaway. So.
Yeah, talk about giving away the ending.
Yeah.
They called it that.
What?
I think I referred somebody at work was asking me about horror movies. Like, what do you recommend? Because they knew do the podcast and all that. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, well, have you ever seen this movie called Sleepaway Camp? And they hadn't, so I haven't heard back from them yet. So.
Yeah.
Nor will
never spoke to me again.
I think you've lost a friend.
That was always a good time back in high school and stuff. Was showing this movie to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got play
just like
value.
Street Trash.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's got play value just because of that. So.
Oh yeah.
For no other reason than that, that's where I landed there. So you're going to keep it at 3 stars?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it at 3 for sure.
All right. Will, you gave it 2.5 stars, which was basically in between Smoke and I. So what do you say?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it there. I could definitely see myself giving it higher stars if I'd have been able to watch it now with somebody and just sat there to wait for the reaction for the end.
It's a long burn though. If you're gonna all right, we're gonna sit here and watch this whole thing just to get to the end. Yeah, that's a long. But
you got along the way though. You get some colorful characters like who's the guy The fucking pedophile guy.
The cook.
Yeah, the plain out in front. Everybody should fucking know this guy's a pedophile cook.
He doesn't give a shit who knows it.
Oh, no,
he don't care. He's just
blatant right out there. And
look at all those young chickens or whatever. Was that one of the things? I forget.
Yeah.
It was one of the lines.
Yeah,
I forget. But,
and then the other cook's just like, ha ha, you're hilarious, man.
I tell you what, man, old Johnny's a straight shooter. I like him.
Yeah.
He just tells it like it is.
He's just saying some vile shit, and they're just laughing and shaking their heads.
Oh, that's just whatever his name was. I don't remember his name. That's just his way. You know?
And then, ironically,
he don't mean nothing by it.
Not to give too much away in this, even though we are a spoiler podcast. Ironically, he's probably one of the only victims that doesn't die. Right?
Yeah, the one that should die.
Yeah, the one that
he's the one that
most definitely should. Because there are other people that die for no reason whatsoever, except this motherfucker.
You're crazy, man. I like you, but you're crazy.
You're crazy. So I guess we're all across the board. We're just staying the same. So, for like we said, for the reasons we just said, you definitely need to go listen to our podcast and go check that movie out. Episode 14. We come back to more modern day with 2013's The Conjuring, which is really a modern day classic now because it has spun off a number of sequels and started literally a whole cinematic universe in the Conjuring universe. This is the one that started it all. It was highly successful, and a couple other movies have been that have come after it have been even more successful, honestly. But this one is where it all started. I gave it 4 stars. I think that's fair. I'm gonna stay right there. Smoke, you also gave it 4 stars. Any change of heart?
No, solid movie. Sticking with the 4 stars, definitely not going down. And I've seen it enough times now where I think that 4 is pretty much going to stick.
Will, you were exactly the same too. 4 stars, all 3 of us across the board. Are you going to break ranks? Where are you at?
No, I'm staying right there. The Conjuring universe is pretty good. If y'all haven't delved into any of those, that's a good one to start off on.
Oh yeah, and we got more of those coming up too. Like we're going to be watching The Conjuring 2 or some of those other ones that follow since we've already seen Annabelle and The Conjuring. So we need to keep that series rolling.
Yeah, there's none. We still got that one to do, right?
Yeah, there's still a few that we need to do. So we're going to keep that rolling here pretty soon here on the podcast. So just as a sneak peek for the future there, just be on the lookout for those. So we go to episode 15, 1986 classic, The Hitcher. I gave it 3 stars. I think, that's pretty good. That was also our Rutger Hauer tribute, I should add, because he had just passed away, around that time. So we kind of took that as a way to kind of, pay homage to him. We talked about his career a little bit briefly there. So there is that, part of that episode if you want to go back and check that out. Smoke, you gave it 3 3/4 stars. Any change of mind there?
No, I'm going to stick with that one. Saw it quite a few times over the years, starting it with the HBO, I think, when I saw it, and watched it with the family, actually, the first time around. After that, I don't know, probably rented it a half dozen times. It's pretty solid to me still 3 3/4.
Will, you gave it a far lower score than either of us. You gave it 2 stars. So what do you say now, up or down? Where you at?
Actually, I'm just going to hang right there. That one just kind of, it didn't do it for me. So, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with it, too.
Yeah, I think I remember you. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought you would enjoy it more looking back on that episode. I was a little surprised by that score when you gave it a 2 at the time, but at least it's not a Suspiria, right?
I think Rutger Hauer does it for me for that movie, too. It's I think any movie I've ever seen him in, no matter what the movie is around it, he makes it better for me, just the way his acting style is, I guess.
Oh, he definitely makes that. He's definitely the straw that stirs the drink in that movie. I mean,
because you go to the remake. I don't know if have either of you seen the remake?
It seems like I have, but it must have been around the time it came out because I'm not remembering a lot of about it. But it seems like I did at the time.
It was pretty forgettable.
Yeah, there you go.
The guy, I can't even think of the guy's name. It's the guy that played Boromir in the Lord of the Rings movies. Played the Rutger Hauer's role in The Hitcher. So. Without Rutger Hauer, the story was it's pretty much kept to the storyline, but he's no Rutger Hauer, so
yeah,
I would give that movie probably a 1.5, if that.
Will, I will suggest you probably need to see a few more Rutger Hauer movies, just to have a comparison. Not to say that he's any worse than any. That's not what I mean. Just maybe you need a little bit more Rutger Hauer in your life to to maybe appreciate it.
We'll see.
we got to get Wanted Dead or Alive in there at some point. I know it's not a horror movie, but I know we've talked about before. We've pretty much just done horror movies, but we're also more like a cult film type thing as well.
Yeah.
So Wanted Dead or Alive, I want to put that in there because not only does it have Rutger Hauer in it, it's got Gene Simmons in it.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, that's
and
another...
we could always go through and do Hobo with Shotgun.
Yes, yes, that was great. That was a great one too.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we need to, now that we've been through the first year, and we're kind of finding our footing. Maybe we can start to expand a little bit into some of those other movies that we have talked about, diving into one day. So maybe, once again, another little look into the future there, for all you listeners, that we might be expanding the horizon sooner or later. So moving on to episode 16, 2017's It, which was a remake of the Stephen King classic, the one from 1990 or 91, I think it was, with Tim Curry as Pennywise. It's a remake of that, but it's also a different take on the Stephen King classic novel, It. I gave it, this is some of the highest scores we've given out altogether for any movie. So I'll just go ahead and say, since we all gave the same score, we all gave it 4 1/4 stars. Does anybody have a change of heart with that? I mean, are you up, down? What are you thinking?
No, I'm gonna stick with the 4 1/4. It's one of the more solid modern horror movies I can think of.
Will, what do you say?
I think I would have went higher, but we've all, I'm assuming at this point we've all seen Chapter 2 by this point.
I have not.
Yep.
Myself, I have not.
Oh, you haven't yet?
Nope.
I still enjoyed Chapter 2. There were just a couple things that I hate that they didn't bring from the book. They kind of swept a couple characters under the rug in part 2 that I wish they would have, at least let their story kind of go on a little bit farther. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep it right there. I think definitely for a standalone movie, yeah, it's probably one of my favorite horror movies right there.
So yeah, I'm going to stick with 4 1/4 stars too. So I think we're all on the same page. And I think by and large, I mean, looking back on these things, average-wise, that's probably our highest-rated episode in terms of, how we all felt about the movie across the board.
Oh, yeah. I know we've given some movies equal ratings before, but I think the most before that was a 4.
Yeah.
There's maybe 2 prior movies that we all gave 4s to.
Yeah.
Return of the Living Dead, I think, was one, right? I forget what the other one was.
Yeah, Return of the Living Dead, we all gave 4 stars, and it seems like there was
one
that I'm blanking on right away that we just talked about. But
definitely that's the highest that we all across the board gave high ratings to.
I'm sorry, The Conjuring. We all gave that 4 stars.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's only been a few, and this is so it's rare air. But yeah, I think across the board on average, this was the highest one we ever gave. So we definitely recommend that one. And there was a few fun things in that episode that we did. So go back and listen to it. So moving on to episode 17, we talked about the cult classic from 1982, Creepshow, which is the rare collaboration between George Romero, Stephen King, and Tom Savini. And a number of other people, too. I mean, like Leslie Nielsen and Ted Danson are in this thing, for Christ's sake. A bunch of names that you wouldn't necessarily put together with some of the best horror names in the business of all time. Actually collaborated and worked on this movie. I gave it 3.5 stars. This is one of my personal favorites, so I'm going to keep it right there. Smoke, you gave it 3 3/4 stars. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely sticking with a 3 3/4. Another personal favorite of mine, too.
Will, you gave it 3 stars even. So what do you say now with a little bit of distance behind you?
I think I'm going to hang right there. For me, this one was just kind of all over the place. I mean, I know it's a collection of stories. Some of them hit, some of them didn't. For me, so yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay where I was at.
I think I saw someone's review on this one time. It said that it's got all these different types of stories that appeal to different because it's an anthology movie. It's got these different stories that appeal to different people. So if you don't like one story, just hang around for 10 minutes and you might like the next one. So it's one of those kind of movies that everybody's going to pick their favorite little little mini tale out of it to enjoy. Plus, too.
And one thing I think they got right through the whole thing, through every segment, was the tying together the comic book thought. It felt like a comic book being made in the movie.
So now that we're a little bit further on, and I'll mention this before we move on to the next one, have either of you guys got to watch the new Creepshow series on Shudder?
Nah.
Yeah, I haven't seen I know they've been doing one per week, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
Releasing it as if it were an old school, like some shows do. They don't put the whole thing on there to binge.
Yeah.
So I think I was up to there are two episodes per, 2 segments per episode.
Yeah.
So I think we saw the first 2 episodes, so 4 segments so far. And I think it's funny because of those, actually we might have seen three full episodes. But it always seemed like the first episode was good, and then the second episode was better. So I don't know why. I don't know if they for me, that's how it hit. Especially that first episode. There was I think it was called House of the Head was the second segment.
Yeah.
That one was you seen that one too?
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah. I've watched myself. I've watched the first 2 episodes, which, like you said, there were 2 segments in each one. But yeah, I remember that one. It's the House of the Head with the little dollhouse. Yeah, that one's pretty good. I like the first one too. That had Tobin Bell.
I did too. I liked it.
I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see what kind of little, like former stars and stuff they slide into this thing too. Because I've already seen like Adrienne Barbeau, Tobin Bell. God, in the second episode, that skinny dude that used to be in a lot of like the late '90s, early 2000s movies. Good Lord, I'm blanking on the guy's name. He's basically the only dude in that.
And I can't think of the girl's name, the little girl's name, but it's what's her name from Walking Dead? It's funny. Me and my fiance watched it once. And we didn't even recognize it as her. And then the second time we saw that episode, she's like, oh, I can't think of the girl's name, but Rick's, daughter.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even catch that until just now when you said that. You're right. Yeah, Judith, the girl who plays Judith, she's in that.
Yeah.
I completely.
We didn't even catch it the first time around that it was her.
Yeah, me either. Like now that you say that, you're exactly right because I was sitting there watching it and I'm like, damn, she looks familiar. What have I seen her in? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I can't think of the other dude's name, but yeah, it's pretty cool. All these little segments and stuff. Some of the stars that they brought back for it. It's pretty cool. Well, you definitely.
Yeah, Adrienne Barbeau. That was cool seeing her. And
yeah,
I just posted a image of her with me and my fiance with her in one of the photos she signed for us from Creepshow, but at a convention not too long ago.
That's cool. Will, to all the listeners, I definitely recommend it. Go check it out. But Will, you need to go watch that on Shudder, dude. It's pretty good. I think you'll enjoy it. You may even enjoy it a little bit more than you did this first movie.
The actual movie.
and they tie it together again, kind of the same deal with the comic book look and the creeper guy or whatever they call him. I think he's the creeper. I always forget the dude.
Yeah, the creeper. They do him a little bit more. I guess he's a little bit more animatronic, but he's still a practical effect. They didn't. At least they didn't CG him in there or anything.
Yep. Now there's a little bit of animation, just like
there's the animation. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But when they bring him into the real world, so to speak, or live action, he's still a practical effect.
All right, so that brings us up to the last episode that we did, because this is episode 19. So episode 18, we reviewed and talked about The Devil's Rejects, Rob Zombie's sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses from 2005. Also, once again, without going one by one, we all gave it 4 stars. So we just watched this one. I'm assuming everybody's still cool with just leaving it at 4 stars.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think we definitely, by our score there, you can see we all enjoyed it. My opinion is probably the best Rob Zombie movie, or in my opinion, that he's done.
I agree with that too.
Yeah. So I guess that pretty much brings us up to today. That wraps up our first year. Hopefully this is we'll see each other next year and many years beyond that. I think it's been I've had a lot of fun doing this with you guys, and hopefully maybe within the next year, here in the late 2019 and going into 2020, we can ramp it up. Do more episodes, do more content on YouTube. If you guys are down for it, I'm definitely in it. And we might even have some guest host come in this year, because we haven't really done not really. We have not done that up to this point. So maybe we'll get some guests, some co-hosts in, just kind of mix it up a little bit. If one of us can't do it or something like that, whatever, or maybe we're all there plus a number 4 or 5. Just kind of open it up. I think it'll make it a little bit more entertaining. So hopefully you'll see more content and a broader scope of the types of films we watch and everything in the coming years. So with that, our next episode number 20, I guess it's a little small milestone episode. You're hitting an even number at least. Since we're almost to Thanksgiving, we're just going to go ahead and watch an old Thanksgiving film from 1981, Home Sweet Home. Now, the last I checked, this is at least available to watch on YouTube. If you go to watch it and it's not there, don't hold it against me. But last time I checked, it's there. So I'll give you the brief IMDb synopsis on this one. An escaped mental patient steals a station wagon and makes his way to the Bradleys' Thanksgiving celebration, where he plans to make them a little less thankful. ... So. Yeah, we're going to be watching that from 1981. directed by Nettie Pena, starring pretty much no one you've ever heard of before.
Yeah, this will be a nice little, like, we're going deep underground now for it, because this hadn't ever been released on DVD.
And we might even...
Probably for good reason, but we'll find out.
And we might even challenge the Suspiria line on this one, so... So that's what we're going to, go check it out. Like I said, last I checked, it's on YouTube. Just look up Home Sweet Home 1981. You should be able to find it. It might be streaming in some other places. I'm not sure. Like he said, it didn't get a huge wide release. So go check it out if you get a chance. So I guess that's it, guys. Happy anniversary.
Yay!
Cheers to many more.
And happy Halloween to all of you out there in Halloween land, whatever the hell that means. Just have a safe and enjoyable Halloween. Here's to many more for everybody. So for Will and for Smoke, the Professor, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spookshow Podcast. See you later, guys.
Good show, Bert.
Look forward to many more.
Pretty good anniversary, Bert.
It was 1985.
Junk hole.
Tuck away.
Oh, God. All right. Now we got to cut you off. Good night, everybody.
Please replace the speaker on its rack when you're ready to leave. Failure to do so will damage both the speaker and your car. We'll be grateful, and so will the patrons who follow you.